I heard the noise and I was convinced my mom is here. She is not, so whoever was shouting me out, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be doing this panel with some dynamic speakers and promoters of excellence on HBCU campuses. We have Michael Ellison, the co-founder and CEO of CodePath. We have Bishop T.D. Jakes, the founder and chairman of T.D. Jakes Foundation, Dr. Gregory Vincent, the president of the Talladega College, Darlene Goins, who's the head of philanthropy and community impact, and the president of the Wells Fargo Foundation, as well as Michael Lomax, the president and CEO of UNCF. We're so grateful to have you all here at the Milken Institute Global Conference. I want to just start off with a couple of stats on HBCUs to make sure we are aware. HBCUs consistently overproduce. They account for 3% of public and nonprofit institutions, yet they enroll almost 10% of African American college students nationwide and yielding 17% of bachelor's degrees and a quarter of the STEM degrees earned by Black students. It's really an incredible feat. So I'm going to go to Dr. Lomax to start with. Dr. Lomax, can you give us the breadth and the width of HBCUs and then what you've done at UNCF for the last 80 years now, 80 years?
I haven't done it for 80 years. UNCF has done it for 80 years. I've only done it for 20. So UNCF, so first of all, HBCUs, as you've given some of the basic statistics, I think for purposes of this conversation, probably the thing that I would really focus on is that HBCUs for their students are engines of social and economic mobility. We move people from the lower strata up into the middle class. It is the launch pad for building wealth, home ownership, and the kinds of lives that we want to see in our communities and our communities. UNCF was founded 80 years ago by a group of the Black college presidents to do something very innovative. And people don't often think about innovation when they come to think about HBCUs, but it was to provide a united fundraising campaign for Black colleges. Raised $750,000 in that first year, equivalent of $10 million, and since then we've raised $6 billion with a B and helped over 500,000 students earn college degrees. Our focus today remains our focus of earlier years. It is to help more Black kids, well, more, because we have non-traditional students too, more of our students earn college degrees, but also at UNCF, we're very focused on ensuring that the engines of that social mobility, our Black colleges, are strong, so that we are really thinking about how can we make them better run enterprises. And Dr. Vincent is a real exemplar of the work that we are doing. And it is also to build wealth for institutions. So one of the things that I'm working on right now is a pooled endowment for HBCUs, $370 million, $10 million for each of the 37 members of UNCF. Got our first $100 million gift toward that last year. So anybody who wants
I heard some clapping. Let's give an applause for that. $100 million is no small feat.
No, I think it's a good sum, but it was not the largest gift we've gotten in our capital campaign. The largest was $190 million the year before.
Wow. Thank you so much. You brought up Dr. Vincent, so let's go to him. Dr. Vincent, can you tell us a little bit more about Talladega College down there in Alabama?
Great. Trey, thank you so much for this invitation. It's an honor to be here, and especially with Dr. Lomax. You are a true leader in higher education, and you are our leader of these 37 great institutions, so we appreciate you. It feels like 80 years, even though you've only been there for 20 because of your impact.
It does feel like 80, okay.
Yeah, I start every presentation I make that Talladega College has the most compelling origin story in American higher education. To think that two former enslaved men built the first structure on campus that's still in use today, and then as freedmen go on and buy the building and start this sacred faith-based mission to educate generations of students to come in. And for 157 years, we've been doing just that. And just some quick statistics. We have 68% of our students are Pell eligible, which means that they come from families that are that make salaries of $50,000 or less. Our students are high achieving. Our students, for our short admissions program, the average GPA is at 3.7. But because we so believe in the mission of our founders, we also have an emerging scholars program for those students that show promise beyond their transcript. And so we're just so pleased about who we're serving and how we're serving them. As mentioned by Dr. Lomax, we're a leader in social mobility. In one publication, we're 12th, but in almost across the board, we're ranked no lower than 18th around social mobility. We have some incredible alums. We just honored our alums during Alumni Weekend. We've produced 24 college presidents, including Dr. William Harvey, who for 44 years served as president of Hampton University, but we have others. I think for me, have been a history of civil rights advocacy, but for us, I would invite all of you down to the Dr. William Harvey Museum to see the iconic Amistad murals that back in 1939 that tells a story from slavery to freedom. They're now valued at $63 million. And it's one of those wonderful genius moments that every HBCU college president can brag on. What I would end with by saying is that we do so much with so little. Having been at other institutions, for example, at the University of Texas at Austin, that has billion-dollar endowment, to see what we do with the resources that we have are incredible. So we're so grateful to the UNCF and the Lilly Foundation for helping us with our endowment. And although there are challenges, when I see those students walk across the stage like we did this weekend, all 156 of them, and to see their stories. Another thing about Talladega is that we've always been open regardless of race, gender, creed, differing ability, and to see those students, 23% or international, it really tells a story that we are an engine for social mobility.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vincent.
Thank you.
Bishop Jakes and Darlene Goins, you all are from the Wells Fargo and the T.D. Jakes Foundation. You all have an incredible partnership that's supporting not only HBCUs, but a number of other grantees. I'm so curious if you can talk us through. I'll start with Darlene, and then I'll go to Bishop Jakes because I know Bishop Jakes will bring it home.
Thank you for not making me follow him.
I didn't want to say it like that. I didn't want to. But yeah, Darlene, tell us about the partnership.
Sure. So first, thank you for having me here. This is a true honor, especially to share the stage with you esteemed gentlemen. So we're really excited about this partnership. We launched it a year ago, and it is a 10-year strategic partnership to build inclusive communities and support HBCU students. Part of that is the availability of up to $1 billion in capital and financing, primarily on the business side with real estate ventures, but also philanthropic grants with the foundation. And I see my partner in purpose over there, Kelly Cornish, who leads the T.D. Jakes Foundation. And so we're really excited about the ability to have an unlikely alliance, I like to say, between our organizations, because Wells Fargo knows that we can't solve some of society's most challenging problems on our own. It's going to take collaboration, and we can't just rely on the collaborations we've had in the past. We have to look for new ways, new partnerships to form to really drive the change that we want to see.
Bishop Jakes, you've done some other projects outside of this partnership, or within this partnership with Wells Fargo. You've done 500 acres of property. You've done some stuff around good soil entrepreneurship programs. You talk about poverty not being prejudice. And so I'm curious if you can just talk us through your vision for this Wells Fargo partnership.
Well, first of all, it's a privilege to be here and a deep honor to participate and to partner with Wells Fargo in directing some resources to some of the many, many challenges that we face in our community today. So I'm absolutely thrilled to participate and be a part of that. It is an unlikely, I like to say disruptive way of thinking that a brand that is a faith-based brand, but also has some subsidiaries that are foundations and real estate development and for-profit companies make up the T.D. Jakes group. sitting and talking with Wells Fargo about the possibility of us uniting forces was an out-of-the-box idea. But that is because we are living in an out-of-the-box time. And I think that while I love stats and live by stats and often make decisions by stats, many who make the decisions about our community are looking at stats and numbers, whereas I have the privilege of the ground level view of looking at the people who represent those numbers. In light of the predicament that those people are now in academically, financially, the wealth gap, the technological gap, we have focused ourselves through our foundation to STEM and STEAM programs, to job readiness, to a commitment to Milken to allow HBCU students to have an opportunity to come into the Milken Institute program and experience some things that they might not otherwise get to receive through a part of a total of a $9,700,000 grant that we dispersed, of which $1 million was allocated here to help HBCU students to enlarge their borders, to become asset managers, to go beyond, and more importantly, to inject into the arteries of our community the possibilities of financial intellectualism. The reason that I say that it is urgent and the reason that I say that it is radical is that the stats are moving so rapidly that we are in the middle of a collision of the birthing of the greatest transformative thought we have seen in the history of mankind through artificial intelligence and the ramifications thereof, and the 70 million jobs that will be removed, which were predominantly occupied by African Americans, replaced by 80 million jobs, of which only a portion of the 70 will be able to enjoy. If we don't go from thinking and planning and start thinking not only philanthropically, but thinking about investing into underserved communities, you are investing in the people who are going to take care of you when you are old. Our workforce is declining. Our intellectualism is declining. Our access to nursing and healthcare and financial literacy, represented by people who look like us, is declining. So in the process of recognizing that decline, we can no longer pontificate over the ideologies of what we could possibly do someday. We've got about a 5-year window before the world radically changes. It is the fierce urgency of this moment that created our alliance, that made us break rules and cross boundaries and learn each other's language, because we know until companies stop planning and start doing, we won't be able to stop dying. The birth rates of our people are dying, the cancer rates increasing, suicides at an all-time high, and then throw COVID in for fun. And you see the massive mental hysteria that has made us afraid of our own grocery stores. But I've never been mugged by anybody who had to go to work in the morning. So if you start thinking about creating jobs and opportunities that are bright and intellectual, that have an upside and a future that is commensurate with the engagement and the ever-rising financial responsibilities of our times, so that people can earn a living wage, rather than what I noticed in New Orleans and other cities around the world, where people who were making 6 figures were being evicted out of their homes and moved into the streets. That's what brought us into real estate. That's what brought us into a deeper partnership with Wells Fargo. And that's what brought me to the stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bishop Jakes. Bishop Jakes, you brought up the fierce urgency of this moment. Dr. King would say the fierce urgency of now and the technology challenges that we're going to face over the next 5 years. I want to bring in Michael Ellison, the co-founder of CodePath. Tell us a little bit about CodePath. I'll just say this. I know you've touched 26,000 students so far, 26,000 students. So with that tee up, you take it away.
Yeah, so I think of, what's the key to economic and social mobility? That's education. But how do we get to effective education? And we think of it pretty simply. Effective education is giving every student, every learner, what they need when they need it. So 10 years ago, when we founded CoPath, we had a vision to create the best technical education in the world, but to do that in a way that would give every young person, every student we were teaching, what they need and when they need it. We started with one of my co-founders, 15 students in a college classroom, and trying to focus on what that excellence looked like. And then we took some of an unconventional approach based on some of the principles that were really important to us. One of those principles being, we absolutely have to keep promises to our students. If we say that they're going to get a great job, we need to make sure they get that great job. Number two, we wanted our programs to be pathways to excellence and influence. And number three is really, really important that the change that we would have would be lasting. We'd have to work with schools to have more of a systemic impact, so that would be durable. And from that early time to working with many colleges and universities, building a learning platform that allows us to provide this level of support to the professors, which many professors we're working with across HBCUs. It's saving them time. We're doing grading. We're doing student support. We're doing training. We're providing multiple years of the level of personalized attention and support the students need in order to be able to get really effective jobs. From that vision that we had years ago, CoPath is now serving students in over 60% of HBCUs. When I think of keeping our promises to students, what's the first year salaries? Our students average over $92,000 first year salaries across all of the different schools, even if you disaggregate by where they're coming from, the rankings of the schools, the income levels of the families. And so, CoPath very much, we have found a way to be able to meet students where they are at scale, as well as be able to have an incredible partnership across lots of different schools, 100 plus colleges and universities, but especially HBCUs.
Very good. Very good. I want to come back to Dr. Lomax. Dr. Lomax, for 80 years, you all have been almost primarily focused on scholarships. Mm-hmm. And at some point, you realized the need to build capacity at some of these HBCUs. And so can you talk us through some of the programs you're working on at UNCF to kind of increase capacity?
Well, I'll start where Michael was leading us, and that's technology. HBCUs are noted as nurturing, supportive environments that have a real strong emphasis on teaching. Yet we've had to teach over the last 4 years, both in person and virtually. And what we learned in 2020 was that we were not as ready as we needed to be. And so one of the big initiatives that we have underway is to build a learning platform. We're calling it HBCU Virtual, HBCUv, trademarked, you can't take it. And we'll be doing our first testing on that in the fall with 9 of our institutions. HBCUs are a community of institutions, and so that really makes sense for us to use a learning platform which we share across institutions because, I want to take a course that's really taught in a great way at one of our institutions. I'm not at that institution, but if I can take that course online and someone else can take a course from at our institution online, that's a win-win for us. So we really see technology as playing a very critical part. Technological literacy is one of the literacies that we have to teach at all of our institutions. The point you were making about those jobs that are going to be lost, the artificial intelligence, if we're using artificial intelligence as a coach and not as a source of information for writing a paper, but actually how do I write a better paper? And I think that the big opportunities for us as a community which has been underserved by education and is today underserved. I see folks here from our charter schools and elsewhere really focusing on how do we get our kids the best possible educations they can get, and when they don't get it, how do we close that education gap if they want to go to college. We're going to have to use technology as our partner in that educational process. So I see HBCUs really embracing, owning, and mastering a technology and using it for good as opposed to something which is taking our jobs, but actually preparing our kids for those jobs.
Yeah, Dr. Vincent, you have taken over Talladega the last 2 years, right? I know HBCU president's age and dog years, so it's been about 14 years or so. But I'm curious if you're able to talk us through taking over an institution that's just dealt with a pandemic, how you've had to navigate what that looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that phenomena is so transforming. You know, this graduating class dealt with that, and then this new group came through. So all of my students have been impacted, whether it was in high school or in college, right? And they dealt with it in different ways. I knew it firsthand because my children dealt with that issue. Some dealt with it much better than others, right? It's tough having a Morehouse man whose girlfriend was in San Diego when COVID hit. So let's just say he's trying to get his college years back.
We're talking about your son, not about me.
No, not I think we have used technology, but I really do want to just take this brief time just to give some examples of this transformative impact of the UNCF, and I'm just going to do it in 4 quick ways.
Yeah.
5% of our budget comes from UNCF, and it's been able to establish a margin of excellence. And I'll give you an example in athletics. Because of the unrestricted funding from UNCF, we were able to start the 2nd HBCU women's gymnastics team. The average GPA of those gymnasts is a 3.7.
Wow.
And 14 of the 16 major in STEM. None of those women would have looked at Talladega without that opportunity. One of the gymnasts who won the national championship, she said the reason why she picked Talladega, Fisk, shout out to Fisk too, she won the national championship, she said, because I could wear my hair the way I wanted to.
Wow.
A second, and again, I was sharing with Dr. Lomax, we were bragging on him and the team, was that they helped to fund 2 very important initiatives for us. One was our strategic plan through this Institute for Capacity Building, which is now our blueprint for moving forward in the next 5 years, and our campus master plan. How do we use our physical resources in a more effective way? And the 4th way, I mentioned the students and their economic profile, and they have given almost $600,000 worth of scholarships that make the difference between a student making a way out of no way. And I see it every day. A student is contemplating, can I make it? That UNCF money scholarship comes, and for that family, it makes all the difference. And so for us, as I was sharing with my board this weekend, UNCF is everything to us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Darlene, you're leading a foundation with 4 specific pillars, right? I'm curious to know how you got to those 4 pillars and why you think they are so important to moving our world forward.
Sure. So the Wells Fargo Foundation's mission is to strengthen historically marginalized communities by investing in pathways to economic advancement and generational wealth. And we do that by focusing in 4 main areas: financial health, housing access and affordability, small business growth, and sustainability. And we believe, well, for one, those are very closely aligned with our business. And we want to be able to bring the full resources of Wells Fargo to the table to help benefit communities. Similar to the relationship that we have with the T.D. Jakes group, right? It's bringing the business as well as philanthropy, because bringing those 2 forces forward together in a coordinated, intentional fashion can drive greater impact. The other thing I would say is, based on our experience, we know that those areas are key levers to economic mobility. Financial health is foundational. Understanding how to manage your finances. We just heard Chris Paul talk about how he entered the NBA and all of a sudden he had all this money. He didn't know what to do with it, right? So that's foundational for everyone. Having access to banking products and services so that you can buy that home, so you can open that business. Those are important levers to advancement, but I also want to touch on the sustainability piece, because oftentimes historically marginalized communities are in the center of those areas that are not resilient when it comes to climate change. And so sustainability is so important, that we build resilient communities, not only to take care of the broader planet, but to ensure that our communities can enjoy a prosperous life for a long time.
Very good. Bishop Jakes, I think so much of this foundation you've shared is a part of legacy, that you think in decades and you're considering what it means to leave a legacy behind. I wonder if you can take us through what that means for you.
As long as it doesn't mean that you just kill me.
Oh my gosh.
No, seriously. I found myself with a huge platform that is a global platform, that is a social media platform, that is television, that is film, that is TV, that crosses stratospheres from business to faith. And it was a very unique platform that I stumbled up on just being myself. And the responsibility then becomes, to him whom much is given, much is required. How can I leverage that platform in such a way, since it is so unique, that I don't get stuck in the reverend column of the community to the detriment of the rest of the community, because we have tendencies to package people according to how we met them, and thereby incarcerate them by the package we put them in. And we talk to them on the level we think they are. So breaking out of that cage into real estate development has been an arduous and yet important task, because so much of our community has properties that are owned by churches that are just cutting the grass. They could be houses. So our real estate development ventures is tying the relationships between those who have needs, that it's possible to be a homeowner, because I live in a community where 42% of African Americans do not own their own home, as opposed to 70-some% of their white counterparts. Because I live in a community where we have over 90% of our entrepreneurs have less than 2 employees and do not have sustainable business. Because I live in a community where African American women are going into business more readily than any other people group, and going out of business out of lack of access to capital. We started things like Good Soil because her 4 pillars really line up with our 4 pillars. And there was a synergy in where we were going. It seemed foolish to go in 2 separate cars. So since we're going in the same direction with the same goals in mind, and we have different strengths, how do we use the strength that we have in production and television and land development to escalate the process so that our young people can invest into appreciating assets rather than depreciating assets, so that we can stop being the nation's leading consumers and the nation's poorest investors? It requires that we begin to think differently, which is a mindset. Banks don't give mindsets, they give money. So when you start talking about mindsets, we give mindsets through film. We give mindsets through our app that is geared toward entrepreneurship. Our Good Soil app already has 22,000 people in it, and it's never even been advertised, and it's free. You can download it right now. But we can have conversations in places to introduce our people to programs that exist, whether it's LIHTC, whether it's housing programs, whether it's subsidiaries that are provided through government or through banking or what have you, or CDFIs, where they can access capital that they don't even know exist. So we are going to, this year in June, be the 3rd largest giveaway for pitch giving, for giving pitches for business and entrepreneurs of anybody in the country. $500,000 worth of equity finances into business, not equity, but just investments into businesses to help our businesses grow and scale. Those sort of things are important, but home ownership also provides a passive stream of income that our young people haven't always heard about, not been taught about, not discussed in the home. The bottom line is this: when you come into this country as property, it's hard to think like owners. When your missionaries are your masters, it's hard to have trust. Trust cannot be bought. And so even though you have the power of your institution, if you don't have the trust of the people, you can come up with a cure for COVID, but if I won't take it, what good will it do? So the rare commodity of trust, combined with the commodity of resources, elongates our arms to reach into building properties of mixed income housing, not ghettos, to have covenants in our housing that forbids liquor stores, greasy food, payday loans, and things that only reduplicate in our communities. And to train our people that just because you have a talent doesn't mean you have a business. There's a difference between a hustle and a business. We translate the intellectualism that they learn into school into plain language so that the people that are too old to go to school and too young to retire can still have the possibility of eating in an age where AI is taking over the conversation. It is that gap between the inductees into the HBCU and that gap between those who are not ready to retire that are going to fall into the abyss by 2050 of a zero median income if we don't connect. Think about it.
Wow.
One tiny thing I want to add. One tiny thing I want to add, and I'm going to close after this.
I didn't bring my ham in, Bishop.
Okay. We think of this as us and we and they and them, not understanding that America's demo is changing so rapidly that if we don't invest as a species and have a global conversation, this is not just about bringing equity between blacks and whites. This is about the survival of our country and our nation, because most people don't work for big name companies with thousands and thousands of employees. Most Americans are employed by small businesses. If we don't make them sustainable and our country goes down intellectually, economically, emotionally, and mentally, who's going to rescue us from those countries who are just patting their foot, waiting on us to fight each other hard enough that they can come in and take over? Every society that had a huge empire, whether it's the Byzantine Empire, the Roman Empire, the British Empire, or the American superpower that it is, the first sign of crumbling was the separation between the haves and have-nots. You can study it all out. It is one of the strongest indications that that society is in peril. So it's not about saving us, it's about saving us.
All right.
Yes.
Our friends in the booth are going to put a QR code on the screen for you all to be able to ask questions and answers at this iPad. It'll come right here to me. Mike, I hate to do this to you again and have you go behind Bishop Jakes.
Yeah.
He's ready.
Better him than me.
Listen, I don't think people understand the magnitude of what you've done in terms of partnerships. You've done some stuff with Andreessen Horowitz, with Y Combinator. Can you take folks through who you've partnered with and where students are going for those jobs, 90,000 plus in terms of their starting salary?
Yeah. So I mentioned before, CoPath's focus on technical excellence, and what's important about that is sometimes you can approach training or education of what's the minimum amount of time to get someone any type of job, the first job, and in 30 days, what can we do? In 60 days, what can we do? You know, with CoPath, we've really optimized for the maximum software engineering skill set to try to make sure that our students have an opportunity to be in the most competitive tech companies, which correlates with their salaries, but also that they're going to be a generation that's able to found hopefully billion-dollar companies. They're going to have pathways to influence, to power, to really change things. And I don't think that's ever been more important when you look at how AI is affecting every single industry. And then there's a question, right? Who are the people who are building the models? Who are the people who are building the applications? Who are the people who are determining what problems get to be solved by AI versus those that don't? So it's critically important and urgent that we're making sure that we have the representation so that the problems that we end up solve those problems for the majority of our people. When it comes to these partnerships, I think the validation that we have from that vision is we see organizations like Y Combinator, top accelerator in the world, and
Tell them some of the companies that have come out of Y Combinator.
Airbnb or your Dropbox, or Sam Altman from OpenAI. He has previous companies and was a partner. Y Combinator may be one of the most successful, if not the most successful, investor and builder of these startups in the world. And so Y Combinator actually pays CodePath to talk to our students every year. They pay us because they know that there's a level of talent and there's a diversity that it's hard for them to be able to find in other places. So just picture, there's a venture capital firm, they're paying us in order to talk to people that they would normally not even select, they'd filter out. And that's incredible. We have similar partnerships with a number of different firms, from Andreessen Horowitz, Base 10 Ventures, which is a venture firm where they have a mission to increase HBCU endowments. They actually brought a number of our HBCU students to meet with Sam Altman and meet with Google a couple of weeks ago. So I think this is what happens when you're able to really invest in getting young people at scale to the highest levels, to able to keep your promises to those students. And it unlocks these incredible types of opportunities that then also translates to, a lot of the HBCUs that we work with. I'll give you two. So Morgan State and Howard University were the first two HBCUs that we work with. Where is Howard? More? Oh. So, the reason why they work with us is because a lot of people don't realize this. CodePath was seed funded by Facebook's engineering team initially as a nonprofit. They gave us money and they said, we have a hypothesis, you might change the schools that we hire out of. And with their backing, it attracted attention from Howard and from Morgan State. They started to work with us. So these partnerships are critical because they also translate to partnerships with the schools, and the schools can do so much with so little, as what's been the theme on the panel. So I can't stress how important it is for us to make sure that the programs, the education, it really is getting our students to the places where they deserve, the places that unlock their potential, which would be the most competitive roles.
Very good, very good. I have one question for Dr. Lomax, and then I want to hear closing remarks from everybody else. Dr. Lomax, this is from an audience member. As a non-traditional student from a college-focused group, I am very interested in hearing more about UNCF's work with non-traditional students, right? So students who are not coming right out of high school into college.
Well, we don't have any limitations on that. In fact, so many of the scholarships that we're providing, we're actually now trying to send them directly, send the cash directly to the institutions so that they, on the ground, can meet the students where they are. And increasingly, the students at HBCUs look like most of the people who are out there in the workforce. They're non-traditional. They're not they don't get dropped off by their parents at age 18 right after graduation and then picked up 4 years later. So many of our students are coming in and out of the workforce and recognizing that they've got to continue to skill up and either get a 4-year degree or to build certifications and credentials that will lead to better employment. So we are being much more flexible about that. And I think that if you go to the UNCF website, register there, and describe your background, your interests, and your expectations, you'll find that UNCF is responsive to that. I think HBCUs are increasingly going to be institutions that are meeting the needs of the non-traditional student, because our students cannot automatically go in and spend 4 years with full scholarships without actually going back into the workforce and getting more capital so that they can continue their educations. So we're having to be responsive to that. And I think providing opportunity to those ambitious people who are not going to be circumscribed by the limitations of where they started, stopping them from getting to where they have the ambition to go.
Hey, Troy, just very quickly, we have, and many of our institutions have this, but I'll describe ours, a fast track program, a degree completion program, and you might know one of our most famous alums, Deion Sanders. So he finished his degree.
He got a job too after.
Yeah, he got a job. Yeah, he did okay. And then we are one of 73 institutions that were invited to join the Second Chance Pell to give educational opportunities for incarcerated persons. So those are two kind of non-traditional programs.
Just for closing remarks, I'm going to give 30 seconds to Bishop Jakes, Darlene, and Michael, if you all could give us just 30 seconds on your final thoughts, illuminating success stories on HBCU campuses.
I just think that this is my first time at Milken Institute, it's been absolutely amazing. I just think what a tremendous opportunity it is between supply and demand if we would find a way to forge an alliance like Wells Fargo and I did. It's a great opportunity not just to think about change, but to provoke change. And I hope that what we're talking about in this room escapes the room and gets to the ears of those who are really looking for ways to deploy capital in meaningful ways that gives tangible results and provides metrics.
Thank you, sir. President Goins?
I would just say that the future can be great, but we have to act now. And I think planting the seeds in the HBCU students who are the future leaders of tomorrow is a part of that success story.
Thank you. Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I'll just, last week I chatted with a number of our students across HBCUs and a couple of different CS chairs. And there's this theme around AI, like the professors, Dr. Burge over at Howard, it was Howard over here, Howard CS. He was saying they're going all in with like AI and data science. They see the opportunities, and a lot of HBCUs are really out in front with just thinking about employability, upward mobility. So it's a need and an opportunity. I know that UNCF is thinking about this and has been for a while. And then also from like the student standpoint, one thing that I heard from one of our students over at FAMU, she was saying, my professors are often preparing me to be an employee, but I want to be an entrepreneur.
All right.
Right.
And I thought that was really interesting because she's like, FAMU, like, love FAMU, like the culture, the community, like they really have taken care of me. And then she's like, well, but I don't have enough professors who are experienced in entrepreneurship, teaching entrepreneurship. And she was part of that trip to Sam Altman with Silicon Valley. She's like, wow, maybe I should be thinking bigger. Maybe I don't need to just be an employee. Maybe I can be an owner.
Yeah. Power of partnership. Let's thank our panelists. Now, we have an acknowledgement ceremony for our students in our HBCU program right after this. I want you to stay seated. It'll only take about 10 minutes or so. I'm going to have our panelists, give them a round of applause one more time. I'm going to have our panelists to stand up. Thank you, man. All right, we're going to acknowledge our HBCU students who are part of our fellowship program for the 2024 year. The 2024 fellows this year have been nothing short of amazing. In the span of just 5 months, we launched in January. They've completed a rigorous educational curriculum with one of our partners, Viable EDU. They've also had numerous coffee chats with some of the industry's leading professionals, including our very own council members, Jarvis Hollingsworth, Indira Arrington, and some of the industry's most innovative voices, like Mr. John Hope Bryant, who I saw earlier today. The fellows have been able to travel to premier conferences throughout key partnerships with organizations like ADISA and Kaya. John was the president and CEO of Kaya, was sitting right here just a moment ago. In short, these fellows have been very busy. And throughout it all, they've remained engaged, curious, and intentional with every class, connection, and conference because they know the power of what an opportunity can do. Throughout the conference, we've had fellows share their experiences, the lessons they've learned, and the relationships they've begun to build. I'm going to call our fellows up so they can take a picture on stage. Haitham Amir from Howard University, who's going to be interning at Nomura Holdings. Simon Armstrong from Howard University going to Oak Street Capital Management. Creighton Props from Lincoln University going to the Central Trust Bank. Jeremy White going to Vista Equity Partners. Christian Sims from Howard University going to KPMG. Damon Johnson from Morehouse going to Payden and Rangel. Kirsten Plunkett going to Howard, going to Apple. Natalie Beasley going from Howard to S&P Global. Dwayne Wright going from Norfolk State University to Raymond James Wealth Management. Olivia Gwynn from Bethune-Cookman going to the Bethune-Cookman IT department. Ashton Brown from Howard going to JP Morgan Chase. Kennedy Jenkins from Bethune-Cookman going to Brown & Brown Insurance. Takuza Moza from Alabama State University going to Cisco Systems. Kennedy Nobles from Alabama State going to Essence Ventures. Justin Woods from Philander Smith going to a master's degree at the University of Central Arkansas. Elias Carson going to UDC and a master's program at Georgetown this fall. Madison Oliver from FAMU going to Mondelez International. Coriana White at Spelman going to Citibank. And Joshua Edwards going from NAT or North Carolina A&T to Lowe's. Thank you, Joshua. Let's give them a big round of applause. I want to acknowledge that none of this would be possible without some incredible partners. So Bishop T.D. Jakes mentioned this, but Bishop T.D. Jakes and the Wells Fargo Foundation were announcing as our underwriter for this program. They gave $1 million earlier this year to support these students in complete wraparound services. They have housing and internships necessary to compete for the future. We have gifts from the Kauffman Foundation as well as from Levine Lightman that are underwriting all of their stipends. I'm excited to announce that they're going to be receiving $1,000 each from Levine Lightman in the program. As well as partnerships with Calamos and Harborview. I just want to give them a huge shout out. We're going to bring some of our speakers on stage to take a picture with them, and we're out of here. Thank you all so much for your time.